The RV behind me is a 2008 Monaco Diplomat. My wife and I purchased this coach several years ago. It needed a fair amount of work, mostly inside. We did almost all of it ourselves. Some cosmetics, some things like replacing the fridge and everything we also did, but that's appliance that needed to be repaired. In the summer of 2020, we decided we wanted to repaint the coach. This is something we'd had the desire to do for quite some time. We consulted several companies, a couple or two, three in northern Indiana, and found a business that could do the project supposedly, not too far from where we live. We're in central Ohio. So we made all the arrangements with this outfit. Their name is Star Jet Motorsports in Columbus, Ohio on Fisher Road. We took the coach to them in the fall of 2020 and with the idea of getting it repainted. Now, the agreed on project involved several things. They were going to use the existing pattern that the coach had on to begin with, which wasn't in bad shape. We just wanted a color change. That would involve 4 colors. They were going to paint the front end of a car, a plastic front end that we also were going to supply to them. In addition to that, though, there was some fiberglass repair. All of this was agreed on ahead of time. We also had consulted with people and realized that you needed to remove the awnings prior to doing the project. Okay, so all of that was established. We thought we had everything worked out. What was supposed to be about a 2 to 3 week project turned into 5 weeks. And when we got it back, we were just absolutely astounded at what we saw. So much so that we called the company, talked to the owners. It's a husband-wife team that owns the establishment. They came down to our location. They're not too far. Their business and their actual residence isn't too far from where we live. They came down. I pulled the coach out into the driveway. We went around it ourselves. They agreed there were some really bad problems that they would correct. So what we worked out was we were going to return the coach to them on January the 4th of 2021 with a list, an extensive list of what should be repaired. Okay, we did that. We didn't bother them. We let them have the coach as long as they felt it was needed. Finally then, we made contact and they said it was pretty much done and we could pick it up. That was 2 months. They had the coach, in addition to the 5 weeks prior when the initial project was done, they had the coach for an additional two solid months to make the corrections that they had. And again, this was a list that we had provided to them. Okay. This company that I'm talking about, if you are an FMCA member, from what I understand, they lobbied for work at a convention at one point. All right. They said that they could do the paint jobs on various things. And I want to read to you something from their website, just to give you an idea of what their website looks like. And I encourage you, if you're considering work, to go to their website. This is just a small blurb from their listing on the web, their website. Starjet offers you the best quality in custom painting for your bus, motorhome, luxury coach, or transport vehicle. Okay, that's just one sentence out of their listing. There are the glowing things that they put in there. Now what I want to do is I want to go over the coach and I want you to take a look at it and evaluate whether you think that they've lived up to their what they have advertised here. At the end, I'll tell you what action we have taken to try to rectify this. We asked for a complete refund based on what you're going to see. They refused to do anything. They've damaged things on the coach. The paint job just isn't what we expected. So we tried to remedy the situation. And to give you an idea how unhappy we are with it, we are within a few days of taking the RV to a dealer, or actually a shop in northern Indiana, to have it totally repainted. It's going to cost us a lot of money to have this done. And to give you an idea, to not let yourself get into this situation, if you're an RV owner, it will cost us an extra $5,000 to remove the paint that this company put on the RV. The owner of that company took a look at it, and given the fact that you're going to see some paint has already started to peel that was put on there, there was no primer used when they did the job, so it's kind of a mess right now. And they're going to have to do extensive work just to get the coach back to the point where they feel comfortable with putting the new paint on. Like I said, we're going to take it up probably within a week to have that work done. Okay? I'll tell you that this is my first time doing a YouTube, and I apologize if the sound and the quality isn't that great. It'll probably be the one and only time that I do this, but I feel a responsibility for anyone that might be trying to deal with this company and are considering it to give you kind of a heads up. I wish I'd have had something to look at. You will go on, if you go over to a web search, you're going to find there are complaints about the company. Nothing was glaring there, and wasn't enough of them to give me, the problems or address the problems that I was going to see eventually. So I want to do what I can to help people out in the future. We're proud RV owners, and we take a lot of pride in our coach. And what you see is what we ended up with. Okay? All right. So we're going to go around the coach now. In several areas. I'll go to the front, then the back, and then the two sides, and show you what the work looks like that Starjet did for us. I want to talk for a minute about the awnings on the coach. This RV has 4 slide outs. Each has a topper, awning topper to keep water from coming in. We're on the driver's side right now, so you can see the 2 toppers that go over those 2 slides on this side. In addition, on this side, you're going to see that there is a window awning that comes out. Okay, so this is the window awning for this side. All right, so again, this is the driver's side. Okay, let's move over now to the passenger side, and once again, look at the awnings. And I actually have the back slide out right now, so you can see the fabric as it's stretched over. If you're not familiar with RVs, it's just an awning that comes out and keeps debris and water from getting down on top of the slide out itself. In addition to the topper here, we have another topper here. And then there's a large patio awning up here that comes out that you can sit under if you want. There in the back, I can't get to that very well right now, but I guess maybe I can give you a little bit of a shot of it. Okay, there is the awning that comes out over the window there. Okay, moving back up to the front, there's also a little awning that comes out over the door. There's 8 total awnings that are on this particular coach. The fabric on those awnings was just replaced prior to sending the company or sending the RV to the company to be painted. So we assumed they were going to be removed. We had hoped they would be removed. We spent over $1,000, and my wife and I replaced the fabric ourselves. When we got the coach back the first time and started to look at things, we realized the awnings had not been removed. They had simply painted them with them on. There was paint all over all of the fabric. Okay, so they were kind of a mess. In addition, I will tell you that, I'll try and get a picture of this. If you can see, there are 2 awnings together here. One is a topper, one is the actual patio awning. You can't get to the area between those 2 awnings unless they're removed. So what they did was they simply painted and left a void. There was no paint between the 2 awnings. So the original color for the coach was still there. They didn't bother to take them off and do that. When I complained about this, they said they would paint them, and eventually that did get painted. But the problem was the paint on the awnings themselves. Now the fabric on awnings like this are treated for UV protection. They're also treated just to be water repellent and so forth. They took something and removed the paint. They didn't get it all off. Okay, it's still there in certain spots, but they claimed that was good enough. Okay, and they also claim that they're not responsible for anything damaged like that. That's not their problem. So we were stuck with that. They have never reimbursed us or even admitted to the possibility that they damaged the fabric. But my logic tells me that if you use something that's strong enough to remove paint from an awning or a fabric like that, you've also removed some of the protective coating that was on the awning. And again, we were never reimbursed for this. Before we start to look at the work, I want to talk a little bit about painting in general. Now, I'm not an expert in painting RVs or any other vehicle for that matter, but I have a little bit of basic knowledge about how it's done. If you go to the factory, take a factory tour, which I recommend. It's really interesting to go through up in the Elkhart area where RVs are built and see how they're put together. Once an RV like this is built, you're going to see gray or white fiberglass. It doesn't look very nice at all. When they start out to the paint job, they apply the 4 colors that typically you do for an RV one at a time. They mask off the areas that are not to be painted, and then they'll paint, let's say for instance it's dark blue, everything else would be masked off, and then they would apply that paint one thing at a time. Now when you pull the masking product off, let's say where you have an edge here, there would be a hard line. Now that is sanded very gently, because when the product is done, you don't want to see that edge there where that was masked off. Also, I'll tell you that when these colors are applied, they're not shiny like this. Okay, they are put on and they just have a very low luster to them, so they wouldn't look very good if they were left that way. So what the company does is it will apply 1 color at a time, as I said, and then it'll come in, put the next color on, so forth until they're finished. Each time, sanding gently in order to produce the product that's eventually going to look right. When that's all done, the company will come through and they apply, it depends on the company and what kind of job they're doing, multiple layers usually of clear coat. Now the clear coat has several functions actually, or at least a couple of functions. One of them is that they apply it sufficiently deep onto the product, or a thick enough layer, that it will eventually hide up, if it's done correctly, it'll hide the transition where you go from, say, one color to another. Okay, that's part of the purpose of the clear coat, and it gives you that ultimate shine that you see. Now the shine should be very consistent. If you look at your car, you don't see transitions between one color and another if you have a multicolored vehicle. So it gives you the shine, it hides the transition. Now once all the paint has been applied, the company will go through and they will apply clear silicone to where there are seams. So for instance on the side here, okay, there are various pieces of trim, and those would all be sealed in silicone. Now that does 2 things. It seals the coach so that water can't get in and cause a delamination on the sides or whatever the trim wherever you're talking about. But the other thing that it does is it improves the look of the coach. Okay, you're not seeing gaping holes where the trim didn't quite meet perfectly. Okay, which is pretty much impossible to do on something this large. All right, so the silicone seals the coach and improves its appearance. If you have any experience with clear silicone, you know that once it's been applied to something and dries, nothing sticks to it. You can't even get another layer of silicone generally to stick to it. So if you're going to go through and paint something like this, there are several steps you need to take before you get there. One of them is all of that silicone needs to be removed. What you're going to see is none of the silicone was removed in this project. Okay? And what that resulted in, and I'll point it out as we go through, numerous areas on the coach where the paint just flat out did not adhere. All right? It let loose. We've already had problems with peeling on this, and this coach has been painted for, depending on what you use the gauge, a little over a year, I guess you'd say, possibly. But none of that was done. There was no primer used in the coach. I can't tell you whether they even sanded or not. There are areas in the coach, as I told you earlier, my wife and I take a lot of pride in our coach. I wax the complete thing. This is a 42-foot RV with 4 slides. I wax every square inch, including the sides of the slide outs, every season. Once. Okay, that's enough for me. But to keep it up and keep it looking nice and everything, and as you can tell, we're in a building, so the coach is garage. If you leave that wax on there, paint's not going to stick to it. Okay, so the paint would have to be removed, or excuse me, the wax would have to be removed with a solvent, and the sanding would also remove other parts of that wax job. So all of this should have been done ahead of time, and what you're going to see is evidence of what happens if it's not done. All right, so I just want to give you a bit of a heads up about what a paint job should look like if it's done properly. The company where we're taking the coach, I told you in about a week or so to have it done, they have an extensive list online of what they do step by step if you're going to take your RV to them to have it painted. And this company does, it does fifth wheels, trailers, and so forth, not just motorhomes. I can tell you the company, I won't mention their name, I don't have their permission to do so, but in addition to doing jobs like this for us, they do new coaches that come out of the Elkhart area. They're newly built coaches, they do the paint on those. So if you're going to have your RV painted, do a little checking, find out. We didn't ask what steps they were going to do. Okay, we just knew they were going to paint it. We assumed, by having talked to other companies, that they were going to follow the same guidelines, even though it wasn't on their website. It's important to know exactly what steps the company will take to accomplish the job. Because if they're shortcutting things, you're not going to have a product that you're going to be happy with, proud of, or it's going to hold up. Okay, so just a few heads up there. The work on the front of the coach is probably the best of anything that you're going to see, but even having said that, there are still issues with the paint. If I get up close, hopefully you'll be able to see that there is what's known as orange peel, and additionally there are sand marks where they have sanded with a coarse paper on certain places and then not going back and finished up to sand it better. The orange peel, if you look at the finish on, say, your car or your truck, you see that it's very smooth, very glass-like. This is not the case with this paint. It's coarse looking, it's rough, it just has not been applied correctly. Now if we go down to where the stripes are, I've mentioned the fact that they used masking tape to achieve the striping pattern. Most companies, if you go to them, will not do this. They'll not use masking tape. They have a masking product, but it's not actually masking tape. Using masking tape results in some of the problems that you're going to see, and there's a reason other companies don't use it. These stripes are fairly well done. Okay, if you go across here and look at some of the stripes, you'll see that they are crisp, they're straight, there's no bleed over from one color to the next, so things look pretty decent there. If we pan back a little bit and look at the front of the coach, you'll see that there are 5 chrome panels that are for decoration. These panels are easily removed by getting to the back side, removing a few nuts, and then they pull off. The company that painted this, Starjet, did not remove the panels as they should have. They simply masked them off. When we got the coach back, there was paint on the chrome. I had to remove that with a considerable amount of labor. But even more concerning was the fact that when they applied the masking tape and then pulled it off, in certain areas they removed the chrome. And you can see that here. You'll see that I've touched this up a little bit. It was black underneath there. You can see some of that shining through. But they pulled the chrome off with the masking tape, and it continues around on this panel down across here. Okay, you can see there that again, the chrome has been removed. Okay, this is a problem because in an older coach like this, you cannot find body parts the same way that you can for cars or trucks. The manufacturers simply don't supply them after a certain time. And the only way that we have to replace these panels is to go to an RV junkyard and look for a salvage product that was not damaged. And this would be an RV that was either in a collision or maybe has fire damage, and they're simply taking it apart and selling the parts off of it. So we've tried to find one. We can't find the replacement part that was damaged in there, so we hope at some point, because we're spending as much money as we are on the paint job, that we'll be able to do what we'd like and get this fixed correctly. One of the problems we're going to see throughout the coach, and I mentioned earlier, is the fact that the silicone that was used by the factory to seal various places was not properly removed. Okay, this camera on the side of the coach, you can see that. You can see that there is paint that's chipped and peeling. You can take your fingernail and remove it, and there's a lot of places on the coach like that. Okay, this paint's only been on here a short period of time, a little bit over a year now, but you can see that there is paint that is peeling. It was not cleaned off there and before the paint was applied. The last item on the front are the wipers. Now, in order to do the job correctly, the wipers needed to be removed, so you can't really paint around them very effectively. It's better to take them off. Starjet actually did that. Now, to remove these, if you look closely, there's actually a plastic cap here. Okay, now that plastic cap pops off, and underneath here on both sides there's the nut. You take the nut off and the wiper assembly comes off. And once again, Starjet did take those off as they should have. But when we got the coach back, I looked at the wiper assembly, and it looked funny. And what I realized was that instead of the proper hardware having been put back on, there was simply a black acorn nut that they put on instead. When I did a little looking around, what I found was the proper hardware was still inside the coach. They apparently took it off, stored it someplace, but then in the weeks that they had the coach, forgot where they put it, and when they went to reassemble it, they simply came up with some alternative. They never mentioned this to me. They never admitted that there was an issue there. They simply threw some other hardware on there to get it out the door. Okay, not a high degree of respect for someone's property. We continue our tour on the back of the motorhome, where again there are a number of issues. We'll start with this grating that you're looking at, okay, that goes over the radiator for the engine. This radiator was, when the coach was new, and when we got it, was painted the same color as the paint adjacent to it. Starjet decided that they wanted to change that. They did not consult us. They did not do anything to let us know they were going to do it. They simply painted it. They painted it flat black. If you've ever owned an RV, or a motorhome especially, if you know you can drive about 1 mile before the back of your RV is covered with dust, that was going to look awful with that black on there and the dust settling on it. We requested that they repaint it the body color. They did repaint it. There's something on there that is shiny, but it does not match the color adjacent to it. This is a darker blue that matches one of our tow vehicles, but they just didn't do what they were supposed to do here. Additionally, again, no surface preparation. You can see that already, after just a short period of time, that the paint in certain areas is starting to peel. Okay, piece missing there, okay, and down in there. Okay, so that was one of the issues. The orange peel that I've talked about, there's still problems there on the back side. When I was painting the coach, or excuse me, when I was washing the coach this past summer, I noticed that this brake light seemed to be crooked. So I did a little exploring, and what I found out was that the screws had actually rusted that were put in there by the factory. Now, apparently Starjet decided they were going to remove that to do the painting. I have no problem with that, but they twisted the screws off on one side, or the screw off on one side. And then instead of doing anything about it, they simply let it hang. Okay, they didn't do anything about it. They didn't let me know again. It simply was left that way. So I had to go in and find a remedy. I had to put new screws into this. I had to drill things out to get it loose so I could work on it. So again, more of an issue with their workmanship. We're continuing on the back of the motorhome. And you'll notice there's little dabs of masking tape here and there. That's for me as a reminder to be able to show you what I want you to take away from this video. First of all, we'll start over here with the ladder. And you can see that something has happened here. I'm not sure what. It's like they pulled tape or they've scratched this or something, left it as is. It's true on both sides. You've just got kind of a rough spot there where they've done something. But it doesn't look good. Now we'll continue on. I won't make comments on some of this. I'll just photograph it and let you kind of take it in and show you what some of their work looks like. Okay, so please notice that the lines here, you've got a place where the tape has been pulled or has been messed up. You've got another color showing out from underneath here. Going down here. I just wanted to show you what I want you to look for. Again, these should all be smooth transitions, and they are not. as you're looking at these, please keep in mind that mission statement or whatever you call it on their website that refers to their work as being the highest quality and so forth. You get to see what they're defining as a high quality work when you look at some of this. We once again find ourselves at the very back of the motorhome. This is still higher up at the very top of the coach. Now if you look, you're going to see the transition here between the shiny dark blue and this. And it looks like the coach is dirty. That's not dirt. That is simply where they forgot to put the clear coat on. There is no clear coat over top of that. And if you move up here higher, it gets even worse. So scanning across, there's runs in the paint up here. You can see that. All of this is just lack of clear coat. It's just a rough mess up here. And then if you scan even further where it should have been painted, you'll notice that it's got even duller. It looks more like they cleaned up their equipment up here rather than painted it. They've just left it a mess up here. They've done no real effort to try and paint it. They put a little bit of color on it. I told you what it looked like when you first put the finish on, the color that is. When you do that, it's kind of dull. And that's what this looks like. They put some paint on this, but never went back and put any clear on it. They never bothered with finishing the project. The whole thing, if you look on the sides of the coach, what you're going to find is a lot of the mistakes and a lot of the problems are higher up. And it seems like the theme was, we'll make stuff halfway decent down below, but as we get up higher where no one's going to see it, we won't put as much effort into that. Okay, so this is what the back of the coach looks like. We're continuing now on the driver's side of the coach, and I want to point out a couple of specific things before we go back and look at some more of the problems with the pattern. I told you that there were several things we had agreed to with this company before we started the paint job. One was fiberglass repair. There were two issues with our fiberglass. This is one of them. We're near the back slide, again on the driver's side. There's a crack there. Now, the crack is probably difficult to see. I put silicone over it because I'm afraid that water will get down in there and cause a delamination. That crack still exists. It was never repaired as was agreed upon. Okay. Moving toward the front of the coach then, there was another thing that we asked them to correct for us, and that's on the driver's window. Again, I encourage you to if you're into RVs, try to take a factory tour someday, because it gives you a lot of insight into how these things are built and where problems can occur. When a big side like this is fiberglassed, it originally is the window openings are covered over, then they come back and they cut holes in the fiberglass to accommodate the windows, such as we see here. The problem in our case, though, we found early on after we bought the coach that the floor on the inside was rotted out. Okay, so we didn't know exactly where the water was coming from, but at one point to replace our fridge, we had to take the fridge out through this window, so we took the window out. And what we found was that when they cut the fiberglass out, they cut away too much fiberglass. If you kind of look in closer, you see that this flange up here, okay, if I can get it, sorry. Okay, this flange right here, that fiberglass should run clear up to here at the very top. So you've got an overlap between that flange and the fiberglass. They then put a putty tape behind that and they seal the window up. If you take the window out, clean all the sealant off, and then put the window back in without any sealant, you find that at this corner and up at the top corner, okay, you can see daylight straight through. The fiberglass was cut back much too far. Now, the agreed upon project was to take out that window, add fiberglass where it was needed so that that window would no longer be a problem. Partway through the project, the first time they had the coach, I emailed them, asked them if that had been taken care of. Shortly after that, we got an email back from them, and it showed a picture of this window having been removed. So I assumed that the fiberglass issue had been taken care of. After all the problems started to occur with the coach, when we started looking at the paint job, I became suspicious that possibly that had not been taken care of. So I took the window out myself and looked at it. And sure enough, nothing had been done. They simply had removed the window, sent us an email that showed a picture of the window out, and then put it back in. They did put sealant back on it, but they did not do anything with fiberglass. Okay, so none of that was done. We also know that the window was out because there's paint underneath where this flange is that I was showing you. Okay, so there is paint underneath here, and the only way that could have happened if the window had been removed. So again, they had agreed to do the fiberglass work, and they did not do any of it. What you're looking at is the awning rail, again, on the driver's side. I'm over this coach a lot, washing it, waxing it, and so forth, and I know for a fact that this awning rail had peeling paint on it prior to going to the paint shop the first time. When we got it back, what I found was that that paint had just been left to peel. They painted right over top the peeling paint. They didn't scrape it off. They didn't sand it. This is something they would have been, seen a lot of, because eventually they did remove the awnings after we talked to them about it. So they would have known that that peeling paint was there. Keep in mind, they had this coach for over 3 months, and all of this was been left behind. Okay, if you look over here, you can see a tiny fragment here. There's paint on the awning. They somehow scrubbed it off. I'm not sure what they did to get that off there, but there's still residue of paint. This is minor. There's still some areas where there's clear coat, just big wide areas of clear coat on the awnings where they did not get those off. I've mentioned the various issues with the awnings, and this is another situation that happened. When we got the coach back, we noticed that in addition to getting paint on the fabric, these awnings come out, they roll up, they're spring loaded, and they come out over the windows. The appearance was that they had pulled them out, painted behind them, and then let them go back into the wet paint. There were areas where you could see the hardware had pushed into the clear coat and made a divot in it. Again, this was on our list to be fixed. It never was fixed. Okay, they did a little bit of light sanding, but there's still evidence there of the problems. And you can also see down through here more of the problems with the pebbly finish that I'm terming orange peel. I've mentioned a couple different times about the problems that we had concerning them painting over the silicone, and there was no adhesion. When we took the coach up the second time, just prior to us taking it up there, I was looking at this particular area here, which I'm showing. Okay, get it in there. All right, this seam right in through here. Now, all of the paint had let loose there because once again they had painted over silicone. So I took a key and I raked across there, and the paint just went flying. So there was no adhesion there whatsoever. But basically what I was doing was showing them that I knew that they had not prepped things right and there was an issue. Now, you're not seeing the full depth of what's going on here because I siliconed this once again after we got it back because I was afraid it was going to delaminate and get water in there. When they saw what was there, they simply sanded it lightly and painted right over top of it. When we got it back, this area where you're seeing that has silicone in it now had paint chips in it. They hadn't even cleaned the paint chips out. They just sanded as little as they possibly could, painted over top of it, and went on. Now there are just probably several hundred feet of this silicone throughout the coach. I won't show you any more of it, but all along all of these seams would have had silicone in it that should have been removed prior to them doing the paint job. They did no prep work in that regard at all. To finish up the driver's side, I'm just going to go through again and show you some mistakes in the masking that show up. So this is just going to be a series of imperfections in the paint. I will tell you that the imperfections you're seeing, many had been already corrected. It was much worse than this when we got it back the first time. And I mean, it just looked as if the masking tape had let loose and just great spurts of paint were let loose onto the coach. So this is actually the improved version of the product. I want to scan up here to one area in particular, and if you can see that light stripe in between the two blues there, that's the original color of the coach. It has never been painted. At the back of the rear slide, hopefully you can see this area right in here, the seam. That's paint that's letting go where there was no preparation. Okay, it's just all bubbled. Eventually it's going to crack and we'll have nothing there. It'll go back to the original color of the coach. I mentioned to you the list that we gave the company when we took this thing back to have some of the items repaired. And there were several things that had to do with this entry door that you're looking at. Again, there is a seam here where there's a piece of metal on top of another piece of metal. And when you wax the coach, some of the wax inevitably will go down underneath there, even though you try and wipe it off, it leaves a film. And we were concerned when we got the coach back, we could tell that the paint had not adhered. Again, we felt it was because that the wax had not been removed. So we put this on our list that the paint was letting loose in this area. It needed to be taken care of by some means. When we got it back, though, what we found was the paint had not been taken off and nothing had been really done in order to fix the problem. Okay. Instead, what they did was they just put a heavier coat of paint right over top of it. Now you can see that this paint has already started to crack. Okay, so, and you can see some more of their work coming down through here. Again, there's paint on the door handle here. We don't know why that's there. Over to the side here. Okay, you've got issues. So again, we had cracks in our paint. We still do. None of that was taken care of. You've got putty that wasn't taken care of. Here you can see it's cracked. Paint's coming off. No adhesion to it at all. Down below the door was another issue. If you're familiar with the film that they put on the front of cars to prevent rocket chips, a similar sort of product is used a lot of times on RVs, both on the front of the RV and on areas where you could possibly scar the paint up. There is a film like that here, down below the door, just a clear film, urethane film that they use for protection. This should have been removed, but was not. It was painted over. We put this on our list. Please remove the film, repaint this. You can see the edge of it fairly well there. They just painted right over top of it. They did not take this film off. So eventually this is all going to crack and peel because the paint just isn't going to adhere to it. Here you can see an area where the paint is actually chipped, and
I'm going to spend some additional time on the passenger side. Again, this is more of the same.
It is areas where they didn't properly mask, and the pattern is very poor, just crooked and so forth. Here you can see that the paint's starting to let loose. It's going to peel off. Just take your fingernail and rake it off where it's let loose. I want to go back down here for a minute and point out something else. I told you about how, these things are painted. You apply the various layers of color, then go back with clear coat, and it buries the various lines and so forth so that the various layers of paint don't show. This is an area here where they did repairs. Okay, so somewhere along here I assume that there was a bad pattern. The masking tape had let loose and you got one of these bad places. What should have been done here is, if they wanted to repair this, it should have been repaired, and then this whole area should have been clear coated. Instead, what they did was they masked over, the area here, along here, let's say, and did the repair, and then went ahead and put clear coat over all this area here, but left this mask on. When they pulled this tape, it left a hard line. And you can hear my fingernail drag across it. There's a hard line there, and there are several of those in the coach where this is the case. All along here, there's a hard line. It just looks like the masking tape was here and they jerked it off and left what was there. That was one of the things that I was told when the owners came down to this place that they were going to do. They were going to repaint all of the light blue on the coach. That was a promise they made. They additionally told me they would re-clear the entire coach. Well, if they re-cleared the entire coach, you wouldn't have areas like this where I'm dragging my fingernails getting a hard line. The last thing I want to talk about are the slide outs themselves. We are underneath the rear slide out on the passenger side. Hopefully you can see this is flat black paint across here. When the coach was given to them to paint, this was not here. This was all painted the same color as the coach, the body of the coach. For whatever reason, they went through and they painted all this flat black underneath here. And to make things even worse, hopefully you can see that some of their paint has peeled. Again, no surface preparation. There's a flake of paint. There you go. It's coming right off. Okay, this is an example, again, of their type of work. The last thing I want to cover is, again, these slide outs. Again, I wax these each year, and when we got these back, got the coach back, we were just astounded at what we saw here. What I'm going to show you, the owner, the wife of the husband-wife team, saw this before I even showed it to her and commented how bad it was. Again, it was on our list. This should have been taken care of. They did nothing to it. Okay, if you look, this is what happens when you try to paint over top a waxy surface. The paint just does not adhere. In addition to this is the worst one, I'll have to say, but in addition to this problem, other slides had similar issues. There was areas where there was paint, shouldn't have been. If you look across here, this is like a little trough that funnels water away from the slide. And I don't know if it'll show or not, but there's a tan line above that where when they mask it off, they didn't even get the paint in the proper place. So there's a better shot of it. Okay, there's a tan line there that shouldn't be. The slide outs have a black area that is a kind of a transition, you'd say, here. It's just a vinyl strip. And then this is like a piece of Velcro. It's put on here to help these gaskets pull out and assume the correct position when the slide comes out. On this slide, and for whatever reason on this slide alone,
they chose to paint this black strip and this blue, the same as the side of the slide out. So I had to go through, I had to buy new stripping. I told them about it, they did nothing about it. So at my cost, I had to replace this item and this item just to bring it back to look like the rest of the coach. Okay, up here, again, runs in the paint. I took paint off of gaskets. I have taken paint off the windows. There was clear coat on the various areas. And I'll check to see if this shows up. Well, if it doesn't, I'll take another shot of it, because it really is a disaster what they did with this. So the question is, what have my wife and I done to rectify the situation? You know that we took the coach back once actually, for a 2-month period to get the repairs done. After that, we saw that there was never going to be a real repair done. They were going to do as little as they could, and then try to make us drag things along. And if you look online, there are other people that have done the similar thing to, you bring the coach back, and they keep, to this day, they're still offering bring the coach back. That was at least the last offer they made to us. That's the only thing they will offer to you. We filed a complaint with the Better Business Bureau of the state of Ohio, and they basically blew it off. They would give just kind of non-specific responses to things that were written. They would never address why it was, they didn't fix things, even though they were given a list in 2 months to do the repairs. We've never quite understood why it was that a job we were promised would take 2 to 3 weeks, they couldn't repair the work that they did in 2 months. Okay, so we didn't feel there was any point in taking it back. So like I said, we filed a complaint with the Better Business Bureau of the state of Ohio. Eventually they quit responding to the state of the Better Business Bureau. Additionally, we filed a complaint with the Attorney General of the state of Ohio. And once again, non-specific responses. They talk about the glowing pictures they have on their website, and this coach is featured on their website. Again, the company's name is Star Jet Motorsports on Fisher Road in Columbus, Ohio, and they have a website that I invite you to take a look at. But if you look at the pictures that they offer you to, as examples of their work, they're all taken from a safe distance. As I jokingly said, I might look 25 years old if you get far enough back, but I'm not. Their pictures don't really show anything. We did go to a lawyer. The lawyer wrote a letter demanding restitution for what they did to the coach. I have the letter here. I want to read it to you. It's very short, and I will substitute the word X for our name. Obviously, we're not here to benefit ourselves or anything. We don't want our name out there necessarily. So I will substitute X. Starjet, in good faith, has offered X to bring the motorhome back. Okay, one sentence. The second sentence is, X have signed a contract. Starjet is not responsible for loss, damage, theft, or fire to their 13-year-old motorhome. Now, several conclusions you could draw from that. Number one, I guess they basically can destroy your coach and they're not responsible for it. They can do anything they want to it. That's what they seem to imply here. And the other thing is, they reference the fact that the motorhome is 13 years old. Yes, it is. We brought the 13-year-old motorhome back in order for it to look better. Maybe not brand new, but better. It doesn't. Okay, quite honestly, if I could do over again and they were the only person around that could do this work, I would go back to what we had before. We are that dissatisfied with the work. Okay, we would be very happy to not change the color. We would just live with it. Okay, because this is not acceptable. And as you had heard earlier, we're taking the coach back, hopefully within a week, and it'll be a 6-week process to get the coach repainted and with a company that we feel will do a much better job. So I hope this is informative to you. As I said, there's no benefit to us other than the fact that my wife and I walk through RV parks. We admire the coaches people have. We feel sorry for people, whose coach has kind of slipped over the years and everything. And we take a fair amount of pride in our RV, and we just want to steer people in the right direction. Take this for what it's worth.
If what you saw is acceptable and you feel that you'd be happy with your coach came out looking like this, then this may be the company for you. But if you have higher standards than that, then you've got to draw your own conclusion. So thank you for watching. I'm sorry, this was probably amateur hour compared to, I watch a lot of YouTube myself, and I know this probably wasn't the best YouTube you've ever seen. Hopefully it wasn't the worst. But have a good day. Thanks again for watching.